Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Our most recent Lutheran hymnal, entitled Evangelical Lutheran Worship, also known as the Cranberry Book for its color, offered something I don't remember seeing in any other hymnal, and certainly not in any hymnal we Lutherans have used before. There is a section of hymns under the title Lament. One of those is the hymn, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. Let me share some of those words. The first verse says, I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Through this world of toil and snares, if I falter, Lord, who cares? Who with me my burden shares? None but thee, dear Lord, none but thee. Maybe you can sense the deep, heartfelt lament and dependence on God in the midst of troubles in those words. Let me also share some of the other titles in this section of hymns, and I think you will hear the honesty and pain addressed to God. How long, O God? In deepest night, when pain of the world surrounds us, and O God, why are you silent? These hymns take on our deep pain and suffering and grief and cry out to God for help. This week we are focused on the topic of grief and how the Bible guides us in the midst of it. And one of the things the Bible lifts up over and over are people who lament what has happened in their lives. There are psalms of lament, and even a book of the Bible is called Lamentations, as Jeremiah weeps over the destruction of Jerusalem and his people going into exile. Perhaps before we go too much further, we need to talk about what a lament is. You see, we might think on the surface that a lament is simply saying, woe is me, in bad or sorrowful times. In truth, it is much more than that. Lament is a way to process grief honestly while still holding on to hope. Maybe better, lament is not complaining, it is worship in the midst of pain. A lament contains honest expression of grief and sorrow, naming the pain, asking God for help, and then affirming one's trust in God. Let's look at Psalm 13 for an example. Perhaps the first verses express what we have felt at times. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? In the middle of the psalm, we sense the psalmist's despair. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. Yet in the end, the psalmist offers his faith and trust. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. This psalm serves as a model of a lament. And unfortunately, so often we get stuck in the first part, that part about naming our pain, and never move to the part where we recognize and affirm our trust that even though times seem dark, we know that God walks with us. Maybe we should also look to the story of Job. I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with Job experiencing the loss of all his wealth and his family. As bad as our grief may be, we probably haven't faced all that Job faced. Job's story isn't there to tell us to get over it, however. Notice the verse that is so often quoted from Job, oftentimes in a fatalistic way. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. The thing is, we often quit at that point and overlook Job's affirmation of his trust in God. The whole verse is, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In the midst of his loss, Job knew God was with him still, leaned on God, trusted in God, and knew God's comfort and hope. Grief and faith coexist. Hope and sorrow can live together. Maybe one of the best places to see this is in the book of Lamentations itself. Again, this is a book of laments over the destruction of Jerusalem and the people being carried off into exile. Still, in the middle of the book, in the midst of all that sorrow and grief, we find these verses. After many bitter complaints about his frustration and pain, the author writes, "The thought of my affliction and my homelessness is wormwood and gall. My soul continually thinks of it and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him." There are moments in life when language collapses, when the pain is too deep, the loss too heavy, the questions too overwhelming. In those moments, many believers feel stuck, unsure what to say to God, unsure whether they should say anything at all. Lament is the sacred language of sorrow. It is the bridge between pain and hope. It is the way God invites us to bring our deepest wounds into God's presence without fear, without pretense, and without shame. Lament is not the absence of faith. It is faith refusing to let go of God, even when the heart is breaking. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.